All right, we're opening up a case file from the archives of probably the world's most famous paranormal investigators, Ed and Lorraine Warren. And look, this isn't just any case. In fact, they considered it one of the most dangerous they ever faced, the Donovan family haunting. It's a really chilling thought, isn't it? You see a house, looks totally normal on the outside. Maybe it's even in a nice neighborhood, but its walls are hiding a secret, something far more sinister than anyone could possibly imagine. Well, for the Donovan family, their new home was about to reveal that secret. And that really is the question at the heart of this whole thing. Because the terror that fell upon this family didn't just show up out of the blue. No, it was invited. So, let's meet the Donovans. You've got Ted and Ellen, a couple who just moved into a new home with their kids. But for their 19-year-old daughter, Patty, this move brought on this really profound sense of isolation. She didn't have many friends. She felt her parents were overly strict. I mean, she was just desperately lonely. So, in this desperate search for a connection, for anyone to talk to, Patty brought something into the home. It seemed so harmless, just a simple game to pass the long, quiet hours. But she had absolutely no idea what she was about to set loose. A Ouija board. Yeah, you've seen them. It's marketed as this harmless parlor game. But for decades, paranormal experts have been warning us it's not a game. It's something far more serious. A direct line to the other side. A doorway. And Patty, in her loneliness, was about to knock. So picture this. She sat down, placed her hands on the planchette, and asked that simple question, "Is anyone there? Can you hear me?" After a moment of silence, the planchette began to move. Not randomly, but deliberately, sliding across the board to spell out one single, definitive word. Yes. You'd think she'd be terrified, right? But no, Patty wasn't scared. She was intrigued. Finally, she thought, someone to talk to. The thing is, the entity on the other end of that conversation was not what it seemed. A masterful deception was just getting started. It was almost like this thing on the other side knew exactly what Patty was longing to hear. It claimed to be the spirit of a 19-year-old boy. So when Patty asked if he'd be her friend, of course he agreed. And then it took the manipulation to a whole new level, spelling out the one word she wanted most: boyfriend. It was just preying on her vulnerability, and the deception was escalating fast. So day after day, this goes on. Patty would communicate with her new boyfriend. He showered her with compliments, telling her she was more beautiful than other girls, just feeding her insecurities and building this unshakable trust. For a while, Patty was happy. She truly believed she had found a companion. Then one day, feeling really confident in her new relationship, Patty asked the spirit to reveal itself, to just appear before her. The room's lights flickered, but for the very first time, the planchette on the board stayed completely still. And after that day, everything, and I mean everything, changed. The game was over. The infestation had begun. And wow, this timeline just shows you how quickly things went off the rails. It started with Phase 1, loud, weird knocking from deep inside the walls, and this overpowering stench of sulfur and rot. Then came Phase 2. The family would wake up to these deep scratches gouged into their walls, and a thick red liquid that looked just like blood started pouring from every single faucet. Phase 3 was just full-blown poltergeist activity, and by Phase 4, the entity itself, this large black shadow with red eyes, it began to appear. This wasn't just a haunting, this was getting overtly violent. During one terrifying night, that poltergeist activity just hit its peak. A 6-foot-tall dresser weighing over 100 kilograms, that's about 220 pounds, it lifted right off the floor, just suspended in midair as if it weighed nothing at all. Chairs and pictures were flying across the room. The family was under attack by an impossibly strong, invisible force. So terrified, Ted Donovan did what any of us would do. He packed up his family and fled to a hotel nearby. But then the strange activities started up again. Flickering lights, screams in the halls. They actually got kicked out. And that's when this horrifying realization hit them. The entity wasn't attached to the house. It was attached to them. With nowhere left to turn, the Donovans made a phone call that would change everything. They contacted Ed and Lorraine Warren, whose expertise in the paranormal was their last and, well, their only hope.
The moment the Warrens stepped inside, they confirmed the family's worst fears. They described the atmosphere as suffocating. Ed knocked twice on a wall, and 2 knocks immediately answered from within. Lorraine, being a gifted clairvoyant, she saw it, a large black shadow with piercing red eyes. She said she could feel her own energy draining just by looking at it. Their attempts at prayer were met with violent banging, and one night the horror peaked when Mrs. Donovan was choked by an unseen force, leaving raw scratches across her chest.
So based on all of this, the Warrens knew this wasn't a typical haunting, where a spirit is tied to a location. This was different. This was an infestation, an intelligent, malevolent, demonic entity that had latched onto a person with the sole intent to cause harm. Lorraine stated that an entity this powerful doesn't just show up. It had to have been invited in. And that's when a tearful Patty finally confessed everything. The Ouija board, the lonely nights, the spirit who called himself her boyfriend. And just like that, they knew exactly how the evil had gotten in. With the truth out in the open, there was only one path forward. It was incredibly dangerous, and the outcome was not guaranteed. Ed Warren sought permission from the church to perform a rite of exorcism, a structured religious ritual designed to command and expel a demonic entity. This was the final battle. As the ritual began, the house turned into a war zone. The environment itself rebelled. The temperature dropped to freezing, and the walls shook so violently that windows shattered. Then came the manifestation. The black shadow appeared and surged directly into Patty. She began to levitate off the ground in a state of possession, her eyes turning blood red as she screamed in agony. As the prayers reached their peak, the entity was expelled, and Patty was thrown 5 feet through the air, crashing against a wall and falling unconscious. And then, silence. When Patty awoke, she was herself again. The oppressive atmosphere in the house was gone. The water from the taps ran clear. The exorcism was a success. The family had survived, but the psychological scars from the terror they endured would never fully fade. The lesson from the Donovan family's terrifying ordeal is a stark and powerful warning, one that the Warrens repeated throughout their careers. Curiosity can be a very dangerous thing. Some doors should always remain closed. It leaves you with a final thought to consider. In a world full of the unknown, what lines are you unwilling to cross? What mysteries are best left unsolved?